Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. We are going to discuss some deep insights into emotional intelligence and especially how it relates with Bhakti Yoga. Because this is something we should understand perfectly, that without very, very balanced, committed emotional life, what is called purity of emotion, one cannot actually enter into Bhakti sadhana. Bhakti is not out of fear. Bhakti is not out of a sense of exchange. Bhakti is for the love of God. And that is why our emotional life, especially our emotional intelligence, should be very high if real Bhakti sadhana is going to yield fruit. So, we will discuss some deep insights into emotional intelligence in this video. The next video will be on Bhakti sadhana and emotional intelligence. Now, what exactly is an emotion? Emotion is nothing but a thought with feeling. When the feeling is a huge part of that thought, it becomes a formidable force, as it were. And that is when we call it emotion. Now, when we have this kind of a emotion within us, we should know we have tremendous energy, because emotion itself involves a lot of energy, vital energy, the energy within us. So, as long as there is feeling with any thought, you will see it will remain etched in your memory. Thus, emotion and memory are closely related. In whatever incident of our life, there has been a lot of emotional upsurge. That incident will remain etched in our memories. For the simple reason, that much of energy was invested. Emotion is another name for energy, you can say. Vital energy invested into a thought with deep feeling, that is an emotion. Now, when we come to emotional intelligence, we are actually referring to the stability of our emotional life. Emotional intelligence today in modern psychology involves 5 important aspects. One is what is called self-awareness, self-regulation, which means self-control, empathy, motivation, and social skills. So emotional intelligence includes all these. If all these are there in optimal measure, a lot of inner balance, stability, and emotional intelligence is said to be there. Now, fundamentally, emotional intelligence is about our ability to handle our emotions and our emotional life, so that the emotion works for us and not against us. There are many times you see the emotions of people, if you see how many people are, the emotion is working against their very goals. They are wrongly angry for no reason. They constantly justify themselves. You make a general statement, they will take it personally and get angry. They don't mind false criticisms. They see, all this removes emotional intelligence. It shows very poor intelligence. If there is real emotional intelligence, there is a stability and balance in the inner emotional life to such an extent, you can build a huge superstructure of a great life on high emotional intelligence. So remember, emotional intelligence is more important than what we today call IQ. The EQ is more important. Emotional quotient is more important than the intelligence quotient, because emotion is the real intelligence. If you are able to handle it correctly, keep it stable, and heighten it where it is to be heightened, ennoble it, convert it into a transforming something in your life, and not something that destroys your life and the feelings and lives of others around you. So for this, emotional intelligence has to be studied. I told you the 5 factors of emotional intelligence as it is identified today. I will add one more factor to that. In addition to self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skills, we can add responsibility, which is actually your responsibility. Your ability to put forth the right responses to any situation as a result of the balance within you. This is also a sign of emotional intelligence. So first of all is, you see, self-awareness. an emotionally mature adult has deep self-awareness. He is deeply conscious within himself. So every response, every word he speaks is very, very balanced and up to the point, never exaggerated, never overflowing. This kind of a behavior is a sign of immaturity actually. If there is no balance and proportion in our conduct, in our speech, then it is a sign of emotional distress. It's a sign of anxiety. So the very first sign of emotional intelligence is deep inner self-awareness, which gives you inner balance. You are comfortable within yourself most of all. And so you can relate very, very positively with others. You are able to listen consistently to what others are saying. You are able to defend them, not blame or criticize. Blaming and criticism is a sign of poor emotional intelligence. You will see undeveloped people will be constantly indulging in that because they find some kind of a sadistic satisfaction in that. But an emotionally mature adult will be focused on the positive. Will try to find a positive solution in everything. Will see to it that the person in front of him becomes completely comfortable. Then only the heart opens up to the truth of any situation. When a person is emotionally mature, this naturally happens. So self-aware, being intensely self-aware inwardly is one of the first signs of emotional maturity. The second sign is self-regulation, which means our own emotions must be well regulated within ourselves. Our own thoughts are well regulated. We have an inner, you can say, compass, which helps us decide how to face the outer situation. If this inner compass is lacking, you are completely at the mercy of the emotions of the person in front of you, which is a very tragic situation. If this inner compass is lacking, you are at the mercy of the emotion of the person in front of you. What does this mean? That person is angry, you will also get angry. That person is imbalanced, you will also get imbalanced. So this should not happen. That person speaks wildly, you will also speak wildly. So there's no point. This is the starting point of war actually. If we have to take mature decisions and lead a really worthy life, self-regulation should be first there, which means I am aware of my thought, I am aware of my emotion, and they are calm, balanced, placid, and they give me the right decision at the right time. So self-control, self-regulation are very, very, fundamental to emotional intelligence. If you actually see the lives of great people, very, very emotionally balanced they were. And that is why the right decisions came out. If you just see the incidents of the Raman, today, we are looking deeply into emotional intelligence from the lens of the Raman, which is an epic which taught us our cultural values for centuries. What stability of character you find there. What inner, you can say, divinity of emotion. How the entire character has been transformed just by the bhav. So you can learn very valuable lessons in emotional intelligence from the Ramayana. It is a manual for emotional intelligence actually. Cultivation of emotional intelligence. So you will see there, Sri Ram, even in the scene of the battle with Ravan, he is calm. He is unagitated. He knows his purpose. He knows how to handle the person in front of him. So this state of mind is very important. You can see it clearly in any workplace. If this state of mind is not there, if an attitude, a benign attitude of acceptance of the person in front of you is not there, no clear decision can be made. Let us be very sure of this. So this is the second important point for emotional intelligence, self-regulation. Self-regulatory mechanism is spontaneous. It happens from within. If there is sufficient yoga in life, if there is sufficient sadhana in life, automatically your mind will remain calm in any situation and give you the right solution. And without the practice of any form of yoga, emotions can be very, very, turbulent. And that is when we have self-regulatory issues. So we must take care of this, invest some time into this. The third important point in emotional intelligence is empathy. Am I able to put myself in the shoes of another and feel exactly what he is feeling? If I'm able to do that, then I have deep inner empathy. So it is not lip sympathy. Empathy means actually feeling what the person has gone through. And this ability will only come if there is deep emotional intelligence. If you see the life of Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, best example of this, she empathized with everyone. Before the person in front of her could share her tears, tears would be rolling down mother's cheeks. And how did she do this? She could do this by the simple reason her heart felt deeply for everyone. This empathy, it's a divine quality. Karuna, compassion and empathy. It's a divine quality. Unless you put yourself into the shoes of another, you cannot understand that mind. If you cannot understand that mind, how can you take the right decision regarding that person? So, empathy is the third important sign of emotional intelligence. One who can do this, can empathize deeply, becomes automatically reliable, emotionally mature. The fourth important aspect of emotional intelligence is ability to self-motivate oneself, which means an emotionally mature person does not suffer from negativities and depression, over-anxiety, negative states of mind. No, he motivates himself by himself because the mind is in such a fresh, you can say in a condition, it is bubbling with joy, radiating awareness because he is deeply self-aware. So he doesn't go into negative states by himself. So he is never a problem to himself. This is a very important self-motivation, ability to keep yourself motivated by yourself on an everyday basis in however trying the external situation may be is very, very important, extremely important. If you see the lives of great people, you will see this is there like a default state. They are, right from the time they get up in the morning, they have a fresh mind. They look at life with a blank slate, not with a biased, conditioned state. And as a result, they remain motivated throughout life. See, in the Raman itself, if you see the life of Mother Sita, even in those very horrorsome situation where she was in Ashokvatika of Lanka and facing this threat from Ravan all the time, even in that situation, how balanced and self-controlled and deeply motivated by herself she was. This shows great inner strength and high emotional intelligence, ability to keep calm in any situation, to handle things correctly, not to, put out outbursts and create negative situations for oneself. This ability to stay calm is a sign of very high emotional intelligence. So that's why I told you Ramayana is the best manual for us to study emotional intelligence. I don't know why we have not seen our epics like this. They teach us the highest values in life. And these values get ingrained into us once we are able to adore these characters who express these high values, spontaneously as part of their lives. So self-motivation is a very huge thing in emotional maturity. Another thing is social skills, ability to relate with each person of any age in the right manner. If there is inner purity, one will be a master at social skills, which means you are able to relate rightly with any person in any situation. Whatever is in front of you is perfectly, you are able to handle it for the simple reason within yourself you are well settled. And your emotions are extremely sensitive and mature as a result to each person what he deserves. You are able to do that. This is social skills. Social skills is not just about communication skills. Communication is just a very small part of social skills. Your very body speaks what your tongue cannot speak. So the entire system, if it is in a yogic state, if it is in an inner balanced state, it will radiate the right, you can say tanmatras, or the right feelings, the right thoughts, and the person in front of you will be will get aligned to your thought process, will work for you. Every leader has this great capacity. He is able to radiate the right energy. And as a result, he gets the right results. And at the same time, you see the life of people who have flopped in this. They radiate the wrong energy, even in a very positive situation. And that is why things don't work for them. So social skills is about non-verbal communication also, verbal and non-verbal. Verbal communication also is a sign of very high emotional intelligence. If our speech is positive, you can know very well things will work for you. If our speech is constantly negative, because we are fixed on certain ideas which we can't change, and we have deep biases within us, then we will compromise on emotional intelligence. So verbal and non-verbal communication and social skills are signs of very high emotional intelligence. And then what I said, our responsibility in any situation, how much of energy do you invest into it? And how do you react or respond to it? Many people actually react, they don't respond. So this should stop. Responsibility is our responsibility. If the inner life is balanced, there will be proportionate response to any situation. It will be in correct proportion. As a result, works get done easily. So this is very important in leadership. In fact, if you see the life of Sri Ram or even Krishna, you will see exactly what was required in the situation has come out. So this comes only through inner balance. And this goes a long way in ensuring your success in life. If there is this level of emotional maturity, you will be successful anywhere. Otherwise, many factors have to work to make you successful. This is the fact. And that also, not that you will always be successful. If emotions are properly trained and controlled, and if our inner life is balanced, you can be sure things will be working for you. This is the law of attraction. You will draw the right things to yourself. We will draw positivity to ourselves. We will draw the right people. We will draw what is really required for fulfillment in our lives. Naturally, this will happen if you are radiating the right energy. That's the most important thing. So this is how emotional intelligence works. Now, we will discuss a little about the conditioning of emotions. You know very well the meaning of conditioning, so I won't go into that. It's a huge psychological concept. Once it was understood, we understood that the brain, mind, all these mechanisms which we have, the instruments through which we function, are deeply conditioned. That means we already have a huge neural network with grooves and engrams of very specific things. Now, to be able to make that conditioning positive and constantly, as a result, radiate positive energy, this is the glory of emotional intelligence. How do we do that? By constantly circulating positivity in our lives. I have given out the laws of the miracle of positive thinking. What you repeatedly think, you will actually become. What you repeatedly feel, you will actually experience. And what you repeatedly imagine, you will actually create. So take care of these three things: thought, feeling, imagination. That this is actually conditioning the human mind. Right positive thinking constantly, positive assertions, and being able to see the positivity in others is sign of very high emotional intelligence. This will groove the neural patterns in your brain in such a way you will radiate positivity. As a result, you will draw positivity to yourself. This is actually scientifically proved. And if our thinking is fundamentally negative, due to some stray incidents of life, if you have made your thinking negative, first thing to do before you enter the workplace is to work on your thinking. Vivekananda used to say this: if someday you do not feel good about yourself, you feel like crying, then go and lock yourself up in your room, he said. Don't come out and infect others with your negativities. First, correct your state of mind, condition yourself positively, and then come out. And then you will see everything works for you. Life is one beautiful whole where we are all connected. The energy you radiate will come back to you. So if I have radiated positive energy, you can be sure only positivity will come into my life. This is the law. Knowing this, we should know how to condition our emotions. And that is when it becomes important to take a good look at our inner life. Make sure it is not merely impulsive and compulsive. Impulsive means given only to impulse. I feel like reacting to something. At present, I will show that reaction. I feel fear, I will show a reaction. I feel danger, I will show a reaction. I feel anger or hatred or jealousy, I will show reaction. This is an impulsive life. So make sure that nothing in our behavior works in this manner. Everything should pass through the filter of conscious thought. Give any situation in life enough conscious thought and you will be able to take the right decision. There will be absolutely no reaction in our behavior. At the most, there will be response, that also a positive response. So moving away from these impulses is very important for the conscious emotional intelligence to work. Bhakti and all that is not possible at all if our life is primarily impulsive. Impulses belong to the reptilian part of the brain. So these constant impulses of insecurity, danger, over-anxiety, hatred, jealousy can arise. But if we have trained and conditioned our mind in enough positivity, this can be totally suppressed and got rid of. So in such a mind, impulses do not rule. The conscious thought process rules. And then where the conscious thought process takes you will be beyond conscious thought, into the superconscious realm. So this is how bhakti begins. As long as we are given to impulses and the circuitry born of that, which is the compulsive life, where you are being compelled, as it were, inwardly by your own mind to give in to negativities, this should stop. For this to stop, the most important thing is very good habits of personal life. Good habits of personal life, which means regulated hours of waking, eating, working, resting, a certain self-regulation in life, and good positive thoughts all the time in the mind. If we can condition ourselves, later on I'll be dwelling in a big way on the habits of sattvic living, good living. If we can do this on a regular basis, very good habits of our personal life and good thinking, through exposures to good books, very high literature, spiritual life, spiritual practices, through all this, if we can regulate these few things, you will see the impulsive, compulsive life will dissolve by itself. It will be a conscious life where you encounter each moment fresh, as it is, as God has given it to us. Life is such a precious gift. It is meant for a complete involvement and to see the bliss of God in each moment. Instead of that, we carry a huge negative memory and mess up situations. So this complete renewal of inner life is required for higher emotional intelligence to function. There are two actually very important modern psychological concepts which I would like to share here. One is that the impulsive life only puts you into the hedonic treadmill. This hedonic treadmill is a very important concept to understand, because how exactly our negative conditioning and emotion leads us to a hell of an experience, this is explained by hedonic treadmill. Hedonism is nothing but pleasure theory, and treadmill is, well, you know what a treadmill is. It gives you exercise but doesn't take you anywhere. So the nature of a negative emotion is like that. It will give you, it will keep you sort of engaged, but it won't take you anywhere. And the nature of negative emotion or just this kind of gross pleasure orientation is, it is unsatisfying ultimately, it is transient, for a very short time. It is due to a dopamine release mechanism that it is happening. It will give you very short experience, and it will make you addicted to that experience. So actually, even this social media, they are considered dopamine-driven feedback loops. through which you are conditioned in such a way, unless you have a like, unless people talk good of you, you don't feel happy. Why should it be like that? Real emotional intelligence makes you independent, which means you are not driven by yourself, you are self-sufficient, self-sustained. So take a good look at what the hedonic treadmill experience is telling you. Any sensate experience has this limitation. What will it do? First of all, it is very transient, so it is unsatisfying. Secondly, it is addictive in nature. It addicts you so strongly that you can't get out of the loop after some time. So that is why this is to be avoided. In our culture, always they told us there are 6 enemies of man. Shadripu, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Lobha, Moha, Matsarya. Kam, lust. Krodh, anger. Mada, pride. Lobha, greed. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Lobha, Moha. Moha is delusion, deep attachment to something. And Matsarya is jealousy. So these are the 6 enemies of man. See that you don't make any one of these primary in your life. This gradually destroys human life. So they were telling us the same thing, that if you give in to these forms of negativity, you enter the hedonic treadmill and finally it results in nothing, a waste of life, a waste of energies, and final unfulfillment. Another thing which modern psychology throws light upon is incentive salience, which means once you have got into this groove of a particular conditioning, even if you know that is not your goal, you will have to keep moving in that direction. Yes, it becomes your priority without conscious acceptance. Because you are programmed now, because of the conditioning, emotional conditioning, you are programmed to move in that direction. You see people who give in to drinks and drugs. At some point in their lives, they realize that no more I want to do this because this is harming me in the long run. But they can't stop. They can't immediately stop. The momentum goes on for a long time and then only they can put some kind of a stop to it. So this incentive salience is a dangerous thing finally. If you cannot get out of your addictions, then it's a very small life. Life becomes very meaningless after some time. So all these are the results of not working on our inner life. Take care of this. This is the idea. That is why in yoga psychology, they have very saving ideas, very beautiful ideas, which I will give you here. The most important thing which was insisted upon for the practice of yoga was the importance of sanskars. We have a video on that, the importance of sanskars. You can look into that. But here I will give you the most important aspects of it. A sanskar is nothing but a mental impression created either by your action or your thought. What is a sanskar? It's a mental, deep-rooted impression created by your actions and thoughts. So when you repeat vrittis, conscious thoughts, and perform actions, you actually generate sanskars. So these are the only 2 inlets for sanskars. So now if you want to generate the right good sattvic types of sanskars, obviously our actions and our thoughts should be of that type, consciously done, carefully done, so that that kind of sanskar is formed. Remember this repetition of vritti, the mental modification, consciously again and again will result in the sanskar. Repetition of right actions will result in the sanskar. And these sanskars, where do they lodge themselves? In the subconscious mind. Consciously you created vrittis, you repeated them, they became sanskars, went to the subconscious. After some time, they bubble forth again as memories. They don't just remain in the subconscious. They will again blossom forth as memories in your mind. That is when we call them smriti. So you see, conscious thought, subconscious mental impression and memory are deeply connected. It's one cycle. In fact, it is called a cycle in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It is called Vritti Sanskara Yoga Chakra. So understanding this is a very important part of understanding our mental life. So I must take care of my subconscious impressions. I don't put in the wrong impressions because then my memories will be negative. And a large part of your thought life is memory. If memories are negative, life becomes negative. So take care of this entire mechanism. This is what they will tell us. Now, I would like to throw a little light here on what are the types of sanskars you are capable of. See, all aspects of the higher life, the positive life, has to do with sanskars. That is why the most important part of Vedic education was actually to instill the right sanskars. They will give you this entire, you can say assortment of sanskars available to the human experience. There are sanskars which are born out of vidya, which means what we study, the knowledge we get, what we hear through our senses, whatever exposures we have, and the learning mechanism, they generate a certain level of mental impression. Then what are called kleshas are also generating sanskars in us. Kleshas are afflictions, you can say, which means the negativities of our mind. In Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they are identified as avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh and abhinivesh. So, avidya is the fundamental ignorance of not knowing something. Asmita is the egoism, the I sense. Then rag, attachment, dvesh, hatred or anger. And abhinivesh is irrational fears. So all these they afflict the human mind. And they also are capable of, if repeated, they are capable of generating sanskars along those lines. So then these are called klesha sanskars. The vrittis which generate them are called klishta vrittis. So these are another group of sanskars that we can create. The third group of sanskars is called the bhoga sanskars, which means any experience in life will leave its deep mental impression. There may be good experiences of life. You went to the ocean, you went sailing, you saw the sky, you saw some beautiful art performance, or you did some bhajan, you did sadhana, heard some beautiful instrumental music, whatever you do. Or it can be as simple as you ate an ice cream or you went to a show, you did something. It leaves a mental impression. It is a form of bhog. And any negative kind of bhog sanskar also can be created out of anger, hatred, if you have experienced something. The experience left you angry or in a sense of dissatisfaction. That also impacts the mind, creates a mental impression. So all these come under bhog sanskars. And then you have nirodha sanskars, which means there are times when the mind is relatively empty, free of thought. And consciously, those who practice yoga consciously bring about these states of mind in order to practice deeper meditation. So these sanskars also gather in your mind. They are called nirodha sanskars. Then you see the karma fall of all the past actions. That also generates sanskars in our mind. They are called karmashaya sanskars. Then, of course, the spiritual practice that you do, the sadhana that we do, the good scriptural reading that we do. You are watching YouTube videos constantly. So that also creates impressions in the mind. So that those group of sanskars are called prajna sanskars. They give you prajna, deeper awareness and higher information about the inner life. And then there are bhakti sanskars also. When you practice higher and higher forms of bhakti, then that also produces deep sanskars. So the sanskars, they sort of annul each other. Like the positive sanskars will overcome the negative sanskars in our mind. These things constantly keep happening in the subconscious of our mind. But you must ensure that the sanskars within you are positive. This is the essential part of education actually. If the sanskar within is positive, geared towards positivity, you will not suffer your mind by yourself. The experience of life will definitely be positive. So this is the value of sanskars in human life. If the right sanskars are generated through right habits and right thinking, a proper sattvic lifestyle, then you are safe from within. This contributes in a huge way to emotional intelligence. I want you to see this. In the Western study of emotional intelligence, not enough light has been thrown on sanskar. Individual stray incidents of life and analyzing that, but without going deep into the mental impressions created as a result of your experiences, this will not work. That is why the attention must again fall on this concept of sanskar. At the most, we call it mental impression, but it is something more than that. The actual Sanskrit meaning of sanskar. From sanskar comes sanskriti. Actual culture comes from the sanskar, comes from the deep-rooted mental impression. And culture is more important than mere vritti jnana, more important than mere knowledge. Because, you know why? Vivekananda used to say this. He used to say, knowledge is only skin deep, but culture goes to the very marrows of the bones. So if there are enough cultural standards within you, you will be one of the most reliable person. If there are enough positively conditioned emotional networks within you, of course your actions, your behavior, your conduct will always be the very epitome of culture you will be. They will always be positive. So this is what they are trying to tell us. So how exactly this sanskar manifests, this we will study with the help of this slide. Look at the slide carefully. There you will see the stages of manifestation of sanskars. See, this is a very, very important thing to understand how exactly our inner mental impressions get converted into action. Look at that first stage, prasupta avastha of the sanskars, is when the sanskar is there. Due to whatever reason, it could be due to kleshas, it could be due to any reason, but it is in a dormant state. It has not yet come into manifestation. You will find this in the lives of children. There, a picture of a tiger has been given. It is as it were just lying down at that time. You are not aware of what is within that. But it is there. The sanskars are there. So this is the prasupta avastha of the sanskars. The second stage is the udara stage, where it comes into manifestation. Like when a person enters youth, so many of the inner sanskars, which were only dormant in the childhood stage, they come into manifestation. They may be positive, there may be some negative sanskars, but a full manifestation of the contents of the subconscious come into manifestation. There may be talents hidden, there may be so much of goodness hidden, there may be very pious sanskars, there may also be very, very uncontrolled and negative sanskars. So this is the udara stage. The third is the vichinna stage. This is the stage where the person becomes aware that he cannot manifest certain sanskars. They are not socially acceptable. So he keeps them hidden. So he keeps them hidden. Like there, why we have put the picture of the tiger is, udara state of the tiger, fully manifested state, when it's totally hungry, how it behaves. Vichinna state is when it sees the guard, how it behaves. So like that, the anger in an uncontrolled youth may be under control out of fear of the police, out of fear of the law. So sometimes you see our sanskars remain in this vichinna, hidden state. They are there but not visible. The fourth stage in the manifestation of sanskars is the tanu state, which is an attenuated state, which means by constantly exercising control over the desire and emotion, they have become weak. They may remain hidden and then they can be weakened. So this is the tanu state, because socially acceptable norms require many of our negative sanskars to reach the tanu stage. You cannot manifest or express anger, hatred, jealousy out in the open. It will not be accepted. So in many people, it enters the vichinna state, and those who purify themselves through sadhana, they gradually attain the tanu state. But if one does not do anything about them, they will remain hidden there in the vichinna state only. So these are all the possible states and stages for the manifestation of sanskars. The next is the niruddha state, where you have overcome and controlled all your sanskars, whatever negativity is there, through positive action, through sadhana, through japa, through the name of the Lord, through karma yoga, through good living, quality living, and through good interpersonal relationships. By doing all this, you have controlled and overcome the negative emotions. So this is there in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehinaha. If you don't feed it enough, the senses will, withdraw, as it were. They won't rush towards sense objects because there is self-control in that person. So this is the Niruddha state, very common among sadhaks and yogis. But this also, you see, the seeds of the sanskars are still there. Just that they are under check, they are under control, and he is trying to transform them, that energy, into something else, into bhakti, into jnana, but they are not yet completely got rid of. The seeds of the sanskars are still there in the Niruddha avastha, but there's one last stage called Dagdha Bija avastha, where the seeds of these sanskars themselves are burnt out, which means a complete purification, so that the seeds cannot germinate anymore. Dagdha Bija itself means the state of the burnt seed. So it cannot germinate anymore. And this is indicated by the verse, Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate in the Bhagavad Gita, which means the very taste for sense objects goes, how Param Drishtva, by getting a vision of the ultimate, by getting a vision of God, the very taste for sense objects, the seed of the sanskar of bhog goes. It is removed. So all yogis aim at this Dagdha Bija avastha. Without this, see, Vivekananda says this, without yoga, knowledge does not come. Unless the mind has reached this state of utter purity and perfection, how will it reflect the light of the self? How will it reflect the complete consciousness, you can say the blossoming of consciousness which we are, happens only when the mind reaches this state of utter purity. So this is the state which all sadhaks aim at, the Dagdha Bija avastha state. But those who are not yogis usually are moving between the Prasupta, Udara, Vichinna and Tanu states. And that is why this entire different study of the different stages of manifestation of sanskars is very important, not only for modern society, but for our inner life, for the culture of our inner life, and also so that this comes into general knowledge that how exactly our inner life pours out into the outer. If there is no culture in the inner life, how do you expect to bring culture into the outer life? You cannot do it by force, and it cannot be done by, just thinking about it. The culture should come from within. So that is why all this information about sanskars. One example I can give you from the Ramayana is the story of Mother Kaikeyi. You all know the story of the Ramayana very well, so I will go straight into its implications. See, Mother Kaikeyi loved Sri Ram very much as her own son, even more than Bharat she loved him. But deep within her, there was the seed of this putra moha. And of course, the story goes that Mother Saraswati wanted that the gods should have Sri Ram go to the forest. They wanted that because he had to kill Ravan, he had to do all those things, and that is why they made her say such things. But for whatever reason, psychologically, if you try to study it, Mother Kaikeyi had this deep putra moha, the deep attachment to her own son Bharat, due to which when the time came for the coronation of Sri Ram as the Yuvraj, she at once listened to the words of Manthara. Manthara was after all only a maid. She need not have listened to her, but she listened to her words, got affected by them, and that inner seed of that sanskar of putra moha came out, and she begged the king that Sri Ram should be sent to the forest for 14 years and my son Bharat should be made the king. I want these boons from you. So you see how the sanskars manifest. When the right conditions prevail in the outer world, the sanskars come into manifestation. That is why you see the most important thing to do is to try to change our inner state. You cannot always change outer circumstances, but one thing we can definitely work on changing is our inner life. If that is changed, the circumstances will arrange themselves according to your inner world. So in this Kaikeyi's case, the outer circumstances impinged upon her and drove her to this conclusion because she had the sanskar already within her, her great love for her own son, and it just put aside the love she had for Sri Ram. And then what took place, you know that very well. So this is how the sanskars manifest. The Ramayana is indeed a huge, you can say, lesson for the refinement of human sanskars and human emotional intelligence. It is actually the best manual for that. Really, Rama Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Vranane. It is an absorptive text. The very name of Sri Ram brings about that absorption. And Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Vranane, which means it is of great blessing. It is the name of Sri Ram itself, and the charit, the life of Sri Ram, is the greatest blessing to mankind. It is teaching us these very valuable lessons. If you pass through the conditioning of the Ramayana, you don't need to learn any more about cultural values, because you see, values cannot actually be taught, they can be caught. When you substantiate and concentrate on the right ideals. So this is what the Ramayana serves for us. And let us remember another important point about emotional intelligence. It is that, you know, even your emotions are part of the Triguna theory, which means they are tinged by sattva, rajas and tamas. For most people, emotion means rajas and tamas only. The emotions are of that category. But that emotion can be made sattvic. That emotion can be transformed into something else. When Kaikeyi actually realizes the harm she has done due to the greatness of Bharat, her own son, when he completely denies the kingdom and tells her repeatedly that she has done great harm not just to the family but to the people, to send away a person like Sri Ram to the forest. She has really massacred the very traditions of Raghukul. When he tells her this, because it came from such a noble mind, the transformation happens in her mind instantly, and she is able to go back and acknowledge that she did wrong. She is able to do that. So you see, the emotions are again, you know, in the gunas, and they can be either rajasic or tamasic. The same emotion which was tamasic and rajasic, if you extract it from that mold and train it to become sattvic, it will come with that tremendous energy. Her love for Sri Ram came back. She had gone into tamas, she came back into the state of right thinking, and she was able to, at least she was able to ask forgiveness for all that she had done. So you see, the emotions also have work under the power of these gunas. This Triguna theory is a huge thing in yoga psychology. What it tells you is, it is not enough to just identify an emotion one by one. You can actually categorize emotions as sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. And the tamas aspect of these emotions can be removed by gradually training your emotions. Which means what? There is no cause for depression. Life, you see, the nature of energy is you can transform it from one level to another. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed from one type of energy into another type of energy. So the tamasic energy in an emotion can be transformed. It can be made sattvic through right living standards and of course sattvic habits and all that. Now here I would like to give you the example, the most steady example of steady devotion and love. Lord Hanuman. Look at his emotion towards Sri Ram. That itself ennobled his life. It made him Mahavir. He was absorbed in the thought of Sri Ram from a very young age. And he knew the perfect man, the embodiment of perfection on this earth, was his Prabhu Sri Ram. And the absolute devotion which he had towards him transformed him completely. And that is why he became what he became. The transforming power of emotion. This is what I want you to see there. Wherever there is this Ekanishta Bhakti towards an ideal, it is the highest level of emotional intelligence. That is why he is called Jnaninam Agraganyam. His entire body, mind, thought, everything went out of his devotion to Sri Ram. It went into the service of Sri Ram. And Sri Ram compares him with Bharat. That is why. In the Hanuman Chalisa you have this. He compares him with Bharat. You are verily like like Bharat to me, he says. Now, all these are exemplars of the highest level of emotional intelligence. Another beautiful example is Mother Sita herself. She was, of course, the epitome of all virtue, right from the beginning. But even in very trying circumstances, to show this level of very stable love and devotion to the highest ideal, no matter what happened to her, this itself is the parakashta, the very, you can say, highest level of emotional intelligence. So this inner stability, which keeps you so committed to higher values, this itself is the sign of the highest emotional intelligence. If we concentrate on these characters, Sri Ram, Lakshman, Mother Kausalya, Mother Sita, and Hanumanji, it will automatically generate emotional intelligence within you. Just concentration on these great beings, because they showed that level of emotional maturity, intelligence, and of course they were divine beings. Mother Sita actually radiated the Devi Bhav. The Devi Bhav is the Bhav of a goddess. She was Mother Lakshmi herself in that form. So always the highest ideal she has shown in every aspect of life. Vivekananda used to say and insist that the worship of Sri Ram, Mother Sita and Hanumanji must come into every Indian home. He used to say great good will come to the country as a result of that. Because these ideals are like that. They portray the highest values of human life naturally and spontaneously in their own lives. When we concentrate on them, our lives also rise to that level, naturally. So this is the highest level of emotional intelligence possible in the human life. In our own culture, we have these magnificent ideas. To the extent we are able to draw from them. That is why we worship them, so that that value comes into our life. If you know whom to worship and how to worship, the value will enter into your life. And that is why we have these great spiritual ideas. Spirituality and culture are deeply related. The highest cultural values become spiritual. So that we call that to be spiritual, which comes from this kind of a source, a deeply cultural source. So when we are able to relate with this, we will naturally ennoble our emotions, change our emotions. I give you this challenge. If you read Ramayana for 2 years, either Tulsi Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, any Ramayana, just 2 years, your emotional life will be transformed and your emotional intelligence will build up. That is why in the past our grandmothers told us that this Parayanam has to be done. This has to be done on an everyday basis. They themselves would do it so that the mind remains on the positive, on the good and the great, and not just on breaking news and what is coming from outside all the time, impinging on your mind. Daily exposure to these sattvic things will make the mind sattvic, and emotional intelligence blooms forth in a sattvic mind. So with this, we will move into the next video, which will exclusively be on bhakti and emotional intelligence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.